Hi, my name is Steven and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to be adaptable, adapting in a changing world. In an ever-changing environment, it is crucial more than ever to be adaptable to your environment. With things changing all the time, it is really crucial to adapt to a changing situation or environment. It allows us to adjust to different circumstances with less stress going forward. Our ability to adapt has a direct correlation to how we handle circumstances and challenges within our lives. I have learned over the last few years that adaptability is key to being able to change our lives for the better. The times that I've struggled the most in my life are the times where I resisted against change and I didn't want to adapt because it was too difficult, too hard, or just something I wasn't comfortable with. So I really wanted to make this video to give you the tips and tools to help you adapt to an ever-changing world. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about why be adaptable, how it impacts your life, and what are tips and suggestions from my own life on adaptation. And before we start, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends if you like this content. And here we go. So let's talk about why be adaptable in the first place. Number one, because boredom sucks. At some point in life, you just get bored of doing the same stuff over and over again. You just want something to mix it up. Adapting to a new situation or environment is like changing something up in your life. You may say, sure, well, I can do something new whenever I want to. In most cases, when people do something new that's not a habit, they don't stick with it for very long and end up just abandoning it. Adaptation is a process to help you sustain that activity over the long term because you're adapting to the new situation and you're making that into a new habit. I'm also not immune of trying to break my habits and to adapt to something new. It is something that I also have struggled with in my life. Being adaptable is a mindset that you can always take with you. So if you want to really mix it up in your life and you want to try something new, being adaptable is the first key to eliminating that boredom. Number two, life happens, be ready. So the thing about life is that it's absolutely unpredictable and you never know what's going to happen. Things change all the time. Your situation, your environment, something not within your control can happen to you at any moment in your life. So having that ability to adapt to a new situation and grow from it will lessen the stress and anxiety that it brings on to you when something bad is occurring. If we are less adaptable or rigid in what we do when something occurs, then it might make the problem worse in the long run, or we might stress ourselves out because we can't handle the situation. Finally, when we are adaptable, we're ready to take the next step after the event. Then whatever happens, your ability to adapt to it and move on will help you grow as a person because you can accept the circumstances of the situation much quicker and you can move on from the event at a quicker pace. And that's really only possible if you're open to the idea of being adaptable or changing. Now let's talk about how adaptability can impact your life. So first of all, it gives you more choices. When you're open to adaptation, more choices naturally open up to you. Things that you didn't think were available to you now are suddenly an option because you're willing to accept something different and you change to meet that difference. If you are stuck doing the same things over and over again and you are resistant to change, you are limited in what options you have. You either really do what you know to work or you don't do it, period. And that puts you in a box where it can be quite difficult to accomplish something sometimes. At its core benefit, adaptability gives you more tools in the toolbox. You just have more choices available to you to accomplish whatever you need to, or to go through some event and come out the other side better for it. It just makes your life much more easier to go through in the long run. So number two, it eases the mental stress. Part of the ability to adapt is to decrease our mental stress when we encounter resistance. This is resistance that we feel coming from not wanting to do something out of fear, loss of control, or fear of failure. If we come into a situation with the mindset of being adaptable, we prime our minds to ease the mental strain that it will cause. Because if we let the fear, the loss of control, the fear of failure take over us, it becomes much more harder to adapt, and it also causes a lot of mental stress if we need to push through some adaptation. Because adaptation in itself is stress reducing. It is putting yourself in a situation where you don't have a firm footing on things. And so you are growing, you are adapting to that situation. But with practice and taking small steps, we can condition our minds to be more adaptable in the future. And that every time we exercise that muscle, it'll ease up our mental stress when we're going through a new adaptation. And number three, it prepares you for the future. Another way that adaptation can help you is that in the long run, it can keep you employed. Many workers over the last decade, and to be honest, throughout history, have been overtaken by new technology or new ways of doing things. Keeping on the forefront and adapting to new circumstances or situations in your job can help you stay employed. Being adaptable on the job can help you be useful when technology comes in and tries to make your job obsolete. Adaptable helps you in picking up new skills, or it can help you even change to a different career. What I've learned constantly in the last 10 years or so is that in the future, adaptability will be key to your success. A lot of people now are looking for generalists that can pick up things very quickly. They're moving more and more away from the specialist in a certain field. So being constantly adaptable to ever-changing situations will help you pick up new things along the way and keep you on the forefront for people hiring new talent. So now let's go through some of my tips on how to be adaptable. Number 1, try to solve a problem with many solutions. This tip is more of a training exercise for the mind. Every time you have a problem, don't just think of the usual answer or how you would usually solve the problem. Think of novel or new solutions to solving your problem. You don't need to actually implement your solution, but just get in the mindset of thinking of an alternate way to solve a usual problem. This gets your mind thinking of alternate solutions that you otherwise wouldn't think of on a daily basis. The goal really is to get your mind out of the autopilot that it's always in and help you create a situation where you're actively thinking about different kinds of solutions. With practice, you'll build the confidence in your ability to create multiple solutions to a single problem. And maybe one day you'll even implement one of your new solutions to an existing problem. The reason why I like this tip so much is because it readily gets your mind prepared to be in an adaptable situation. For example, if you're trying to solve a problem and you always use this one solution, being adaptable is basically giving yourself another option. You're adapting to a new solution to an old problem. It may be a small step, but in the end, it'll help you create a base for more complex adaptations. This is just a gradual way to build your adaptation muscle. Number 2, take the occasional risk. This means just doing something outside of your comfort zone on an occasional basis. This can be sports, this could be a new career, this could be something that you just take a small risk in. This helps you get into a mindset of doing something that's different from the usual. Because where this leads to is being adaptable requires you to do something new at some point in time. So building up that slow, occasional risk-taking will help you build that adaptability muscle so that when you're going to do something that you're not used to or you're completely uncomfortable with, you have the confidence in yourself that you've taken similar risks before and that you can draw your experience upon that. So in my previous video, I talk about how risky are you and what is your risk tolerance. In that video, I show you how you can slowly get out of your comfort zone little by little using 3 kinds of color-coded buckets, and how you can move through different buckets as your risk tolerances increase. And this video will help you get in the mindset of being able to take occasional risks. So I'll put a link down in the description box below. So taking risks and being adaptable are 2 peas in the same pod. Both require you to be uncomfortable and challenge you in a certain way. The only difference is that taking the occasional risk, you're in control of that risk you take. And when you're going through some adaptation, you might not have control of the situation. So taking occasional risk will prepare you for that eventual change. So number 3, suffer a little sometimes. Being adaptable oftentimes requires us to go through some form of discomfort. Whether that it's your mind or your body, you're putting yourself in a situation where you're not used to it. And that adjustment period can be very uncomfortable sometimes. We can get used to that process a little faster by going outside of our comfort zone and by doing things that might make us suffer a little bit. So what do I mean by suffer? So for example, going camping and sleeping in a sleeping bag rather than your normal bed at night. Or if you want something simpler, sleep in a sleeping bag in your home instead of your usual bed at night. Or for another example, take public transportation instead of using the car. Or walk up the stairs versus taking the elevator. It's generally doing things the hard way versus the easy route you would normally take. This builds up our ability to physically deal with things that are uncomfortable to us. It is just another tool to help us adapt to something. In this case, it's more physical in nature. It is really just another way to force our mind and our body in an uncomfortable situation. So another benefit of suffering a little sometimes is to help give us perspective on our own lives. Sometimes when we do the normal easy route, we lose perspective on how fortunate we are to have these technological or things in our lives that makes everything easier. So it's also a really good method to appreciate what we have in our lives. Number 4, always work your way up. So learning to adapt, especially when you're starting out, is really hard. it's really hard to break out of our normal habits and challenge ourselves to do something new. Starting small and working your way up is a really good way to build your adaptation muscle so that when something big happens, you're ready for it. So when you're starting out, do small things first and then eventually work your way up to something larger. So for example, if you want to lose weight and you want to adapt to new eating habits, you have to start out small first and then you gradually make bigger and bigger changes. So for my personal example, I wanted to eliminate sugar from my coffee. It wasn't good for me and I was drinking a lot of coffee with sugar when the pandemic started. So what I did is I slowly tapered off the sugar I put in my coffee, and eventually now I don't have any sugar when I drink my coffee at all. But I really started from small changes and now I'm able to drink my coffee without any sugar. I didn't just try to go cold turkey all at once. I made small changes to make sure that it would be sustainable over time. So small adaptation changes will build the groundwork for larger changes in the future. It also builds up your confidence in being able to make small changes and stick to them so that when big changes come, you are ready. And number 5, learn from others. The greatest thing about the modern age is that there are examples of anything you want whenever you want it. By just Googling it or searching for it, you can find answers to anything online. So learning to adapt to new things from other people has never been easier. Almost any type of example of someone changing or adapting to a new situation or environment can be found online. You just have to search a little for it, but you'll usually be able to find experiences from other people. So I really suggest when you're trying to adapt to a new situation or you want to change yourself, is to try to find examples of it online first. This way you can really learn what others have done and maybe even learn from their mistakes if they have any. Because it will dramatically cut down the stress and learning time of going through it yourself. The key here is to really avoid the mistakes and pitfalls of others when they're going through the same thing. Learning from others is just another key way to make the adaptation process smoother. So those are my tips on how to change and adapt to a new situation or environment. It is a key skill that I think everybody will benefit over the long term. The real advantage here is having the ability to control yourself when the situation or environment is changing around you. And this gives you an extreme amount of confidence in yourself that you can do whatever you need to get through a certain situation. As humans, we are uniquely able to adapt to any situation and environment we choose to. I have been able to take my adaptation skills and improve many areas in my life based on all the changing environments and situations that I've been in. Going through those adaptations, I've become far more content with my life than if I had resisted against those changes or even fought against them. It has also lessened the stress and anxiety over the lack of control over my situation or environment, because I know I can adapt and manage anything and everything that comes my way. So I really hope you enjoyed this video and found something useful on adaptation, and maybe even use some of my suggestions when you're going through an adaptation process yourself. So please leave me a comment down below on what kind of things that you've adapted to in your life, and I'll see you next time.